Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order and note the members present at 6:30 p.m. Welcome those who've joined us in the gallery and welcome staff. Item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, second by Councillor Hoffman. Resolved that the agenda for the special meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 be approved as amended.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 4, delegations and presentations. 2023 capital budget.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and on behalf of the staff here tonight and the organization, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules and just before the holiday season, instead of maybe making cookies and wrapping presents, you're here to listen to the capital budget presentation, which is going to provide you with an overview of what we're recommending for capital projects for 2023. Now, we do present to council the capital budget, and then we will follow with a presentation on the operating budget for 2023 in January. But we start with the capital budget, so council knows what we are looking at in terms of infrastructure and capital projects and budgeting for. And so we look for your comments, and we will advertise to the public for input into the capital budget. But we will bring this back as part of the entire 2023 municipal budget and look for your approval approximately at the end of February, beginning of March. So tonight is just a presentation from the staff to give you an overview about the types of projects we're including and how those projects will be funded. Thank you. I just have to get the presentation up. Yeah, it's on the desktop. I just got to find the desktop. Right here. Sorry for the delay. Screen share. That looks okay. Everyone can see. It's not like a PowerPoint. I don't know what's going on. Well, we'll deal with that as long as you can see it. Just ignore the little writing on the bottom for now. Yeah, that's all I can do. So tonight, again, we present you with the 23 capital budget. And I think as a starting point, as we go through the presentation, and I'll turn this over to Manuela, our treasurer, to present the budget. I think that as a staff team, we want to say that we're presenting a budget tonight that just isn't prepared for overnight or even over a couple months. The projects that we're presenting have been thought about and have been planned for over time. The majority of these projects were part of a long-term capital plan from 3-4 years ago, where we started putting monies aside for critical projects that have gone through an evaluation process that asks, staff asks questions around, is this essential? Is it necessary? Is it better to rehabilitate or to buy new? Is it supported with any type of engineering report or background documents that indicate it needs to be completed? Is it part of our asset management plan? Are there available grants? So we go through and vet each project through a criteria, an evaluation process, and bring to you tonight some projects that have been prepared for in terms of financing through past years and the budget. The projects that we present are ones that we think are necessary, and really we think about fairness to all taxpayers. Are we bringing forward the projects to council that are in the best community's interest and the majority of the community's interest? So that is really forefront when we look at these projects. As well, as Manuela is going to speak about, we make sure it aligns with the past strategic plan and is included in there. And I'm happy to present this budget to you that I think you will find is as fair, has the background support, and is as reasonable as possible, given there'll always be more need than money available for capital. So on that, I just thank you again for coming tonight, and I'll pass it over to Manuela.
Everyone, thank you. So I'm just going to start out with the first slide. Some of the capital planning considerations that we gave when preparing our budget this year. We looked at the 2023 challenges that we thought we might be facing, and we're estimating the cost of living allowance to continue to affect the supply chain and the cost of purchasing, wages. We're looking at a 6 to 7% increase there. Revenues, of course, we have to always consider revenues. Where can we get money from? What grants are available? What's happening with grants we have? So I think I've spoken before. OMPF has gone down $50,000. We just received this week word that our OCIF formula funding has been decreased from $485,000 to $412,000. So that's another big loss there. So I can't remember OCIF, it's the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Sorry, there's two components to it. There's an application-based component where we apply for funding, but this is a formula component. It's based on certain criteria, and for us, it's gone down. Absolutely.
So for the ARR, is the population the main criteria? Which
No, it's asset-based.
Okay.
So it has a lot to do with our asset management plan, what's in our asset management plan, the age, the cost to replace. So all of those types of things. When we sell off assets, it affects it. So,
perfect. Thank you.
yeah, not population based. The Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, on the other half, is driven somewhat by population.
Thank you.
The 2023 to 26 is a multi-year budget, so we're looking at multi-year budgeting and doing some planning into the future. So this is the first year where we're preparing. It's next year's budget will be the actual first true 4-year budget, because it will allow 2023 for council to set priorities, strategies, a strategic plan, and we'll build on that. But for now, we're still planning some of the projects to go well into year 2, 3, and some until 4. The asset management plan always speaks to the budget, so it will inform us as to what we need to do with some of our assets. Some need to be replaced, some are well beyond their useful life, some can be rehabilitated. As part of our asset management obligations, we have to look at asset retirement obligations this year. That's a new thing that's been legislated for this year. It's very similar to the landfill post-closure. So when we close our landfill, we have to rehabilitate it. We have to have money set aside in order to do that. With asset retirement obligations, we have to determine the cost if we were to dispose of any of our assets, what it would cost to dispose of it in a non-hazardous way. So say we had to demolish a building, we'd have to know what asbestos is in the building, what other hazardous materials are in that building. And we'd have to prepare an account for the expense of removing those as part of our asset management. So this is new in legislation. And then of course, future needs, we always have to look to our future needs and make plans for that. So it's part of being financially sustainable and fiscally responsible to our taxpayers and to the town. We looked at key priorities from the strategic plan. I'm not going to read through them all. You all have them. There's a couple slides that mention some of them, and I wanted to just make council aware that we've either met a lot of these, or we're in the process of either they're in the plan for the next 4 years, or we're already doing them, and some are complete. So I think one we just finished, the water and wastewater master plan, was just presented to you last week. And that one was a quick one off the top of my head that I could remember because it was so close. So just some of the overviews. In 2021, we had an operating surplus of 1.3 million, just over 1.3 million in water and wastewater, and 984,000 in 1.3 million in operating and 984,000 in water and wastewater for a total surplus of 2.3 million. That surplus has been put back into the capital through the surplus deficit policy, and we're going to be using it in the next few years to accomplish some of the $5 million in capital programs that we'd like to accomplish. So some of the goals and guidelines that we used when determining what we're going to do in the next 4 years, or in the next year for sure, we made sure that everything aligned with the asset management plan and the strategic plan. We are looking at maximizing grants and capital funding wherever we can. And I will speak to that later in the presentation as well, because we have quite a few grants in reserves that we receive on an annual basis, but sometimes don't need to use them for several years. So we're wanting to make sure that we maximize those as well, because the internal grants are not as restricted. So we're also we're ensuring that we're not limited to critical capital support. Some of the projects will be conditional on funding, so we won't do every project that's been presented here. Some we'll do only if we get the funding. The projects must demonstrate why it's critical to our capital, and the plan. Sorry, I'm having a hard day today because I've had dental surgery and it's just affecting me. So, and we provide a plan to raise revenues and to undertake some of the new projects. So some of the projects that we completed in 2022 that we started last year, and some even before that, were projects like the airport lighting project, which is serving our airport very well. We bought a new truck and sander. I'm hoping it's out on the road. I was looking over to Dan. I'm hoping we're putting it to good use. The school zone project is now complete. We upgraded the system for the audio. We did our water master plan. We did some improvements in the downtown area. We really revamped our records management, and on an ongoing basis, we make sure that we update our hardware. Also, some of our continuing projects that we started this year or a couple years before, and are continuing on into next year, are the LNG project, which is a project with some other communities, the 5-year tourism plan. That's exciting. I think it's going to set some criteria and strategies around tourism. The cemetery expansion, the hydrant and MRV, I left it here. It's all zero, but I thought it was an interesting thing to point out to council. This we had planned on doing last year. We were able to roll it into the water intake project and get it funded. And the monies that we had raised are going towards our portion. So that was it was not a large sum of money, but it helped us to do a much bigger project. The sewer jet and vacuum trailer, I know Dan's been wanting this for a while, and we do have it here. We do feel it's a critical component of the infrastructure when it comes to water and sewer. However, we're putting it kind of at the end of the list. It'll be one of the last projects we do if there's funding still available to do it, because we can contract that project out. The water treatment plant filters, I'll talk about these a little bit. I'm stealing Dan's thunder here. I just wanted to mention some of the challenges. When I said we had challenges, I think we had originally, these were $120,000 originally, and now they're upwards of $200,000 a skid because of the supply chain issues we've been having as a result of COVID-19. So I'm not going to go through them all. Council can have a look at them if they have any questions. Well, I think everybody's going to go through them tonight. Yeah.
The filters at the water and sewer, we had planned 300,000, right?
We had planned, I think it was 120,000 a skid for 3 skids, but they're upwards of $200,000 a skid now.
So it's double.
It's 600,000 almost now.
Okay, I just needed to
And
understand
it's
that.
nothing that we can do. It's totally out of our control.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, and we have to have them. It's safe drinking water. So there are also some projects here that are subject to funding. There's $1.8 million in projects that are subject to funding, and I think Alex will speak mostly to those. And then the last thing we have is our long-term financial planning. So we break down our budget to the projects that are ongoing from last year, the new projects that we're recommending, and the projects that are subject to funding that we'll go forward with if we can obtain funding, and then our long-term financial planning. We started that a couple of years ago. We started planning for the purchase or the rehabilitation of those larger ticket items, such as the fire truck that we bought a couple of years ago, and I know we need more fire trucks, so it's still on here. And the fire hall, heavy equipment, this building, and you can see there's a previous column, so there's not a large sum of money in that previous column, 1.4 million, but it was a new way of doing things that we started a couple of years ago. So I think over a couple of years, we've done a pretty good job of raising a little bit of money there. So, and we have a plan going forward. So I think I'm going to let Maury talk about some of the things in corporate services, and we'll go on from there.
Thank you, Manuela. So one of the projects that's included in the 2023 capital budget is the Town Hall redesign study. As I mentioned during orientation, in the strategic plan, and a priority of past councils is ensuring that the municipal building is accessible and meets the requirements of what they call the AODA Act, the Accessibilities Act of Ontario. This building is very old, has been built on and added on to for years, and currently does have some severe issues relating to the HVAC system. It doesn't work properly. There are some needed repairs to the building. And recently with the OPP community office relocating out of the building, there is definitely a need to move forward with looking at what are the best options for council to consider when it comes to looking at this building. I'd also add on top of that, that the library has indicated that it needs to undertake some redesign work to meet the AODA requirements, which would require it to almost double its space in essence, to make sure that all materials it has available at the library are accessible to someone who may have some disabilities. So there's a real need to look at this building and our needs and come up with a plan for a redesign. So in 2023, we are including a cost of $200,000. And basically it's to hire an architect engineering firm to help us look at the building, do an assessment, design a project brief, and to develop construction plans. This cost is an estimate. So any monies that it's raised in 2023 that would be unspent would go to supporting the long-term construction costs related. We're developing as a team an RFP, or request for proposals and quotations. And we're a little behind because we're waiting until the police are totally vacated from the building to look at that portion. So we'll start on this in January, with an aim of trying to get a plan in place, access any available funding, look at opportunities with the building, and look at some kind of reconstruction going forward in 2024 or 2025. So council is aware the AODA legislation does not require or have a timeline on when municipal buildings must be accessible. But what it does state is that when you do any reconstruction, what they call substantial reconstruction of a building, and this would apply to all municipal buildings, then you must meet the AODA regulations. So we look forward to beginning this proposal and discussing it further with council, but that's just a brief overview of the one item in the capital budget. The second I'll talk about is for the 23-24 capital budget, a job evaluation review, which would include looking at the organizational structure, looking at our pay equity plans, and doing a job evaluation and update on our job description. So the plan is that through taxation, because it's very, very rare that there would be any grant opportunities for a process like this, putting $70,000 in the budget to start that process, and essentially just to make sure we're compliant with any legislation, updated job descriptions, and we're moving towards the best organization we can be by supporting our staff. So that is included in the budget this year as well. And Manuel, if you're able to talk, would you like to talk about software?
Okay, thank you. So I know we've talked about this before, and we're bringing it forward again this year with the goal of introducing it this year. So we've been waiting for this software to develop in Ontario, and there are several municipalities in Ontario now using this software. It's a Canadian-based software. It's municipal. It will deal with all aspects of the municipal software needs, whether it's in finance or scheduling, recreation for the arena. I'm just asset management, so we can incorporate our asset management in here as well and meet all those obligations, the fire department and any of those permitting type things. So it's a very holistic software. It's in the cloud, so it will reduce our IT costs in the future and our maintenance costs. We won't need those big servers anymore, and it'll, so we're hoping to bring that forward. And then computer hardware, we will still need computers. So, and we rotate this. This you will always see on the budget. It's a small ticket item. It's never very large amount, but we every year rotate some of the equipment out. I think council got all new equipment this year. Some of the staff got some new computers. Sometimes the monitors needed or printers. So this takes care of that. And then subject to funding is asset management. We applied for a grant through FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We've received that grant, so we received our approval. It's for $62,500, and what it will do is it's going to allow us to bring in a firm that will do condition assessments on all our buildings, including the fire hall. They need a condition assessment because they need a new fire hall. So that's nice. We were able to wrap that into this. It will cost us $12,500. The grant pays the other $50,000. Then it will also help us with our ARO, our asset retirement obligation commitment that I spoke about previously. It'll help us to meet that need as well. So that's it for me.
Okay, so for the Community Services Department, like Manuela talked about, most of our projects are under subject to funding. So something that we often take a look at in recreation, because we do some fun stuff, and so there's a lot more funding out there for fun stuff than things like job evaluations, things like that. So this year we were able to get funding after several applications to a variety of sources, including Trillium, to redo the running track in the sports field at the community center. So that's a project cost of $130,000 that was fully funded by Trillium. So redoing that sports field is only going to cost some of my time to manage the project, but it won't be paid for in municipal dollars. It all comes from the Ontario Trillium Fund. So that is the project that we've received funding for. Go ahead.
Alex,
Yeah.
can our man do the work that is needed for the sports field?
It's possible for us to do the work, but we're going to employ a local contractor to do it.
Local contractor?
Yeah. So the funding doesn't cover our staff. So our staff can do it, like Dan and I could work together to do the exact things that we're doing on the sports field, but then we wouldn't get funding from an organization like Trillium to do it.
Okay.
So we're contracting the service out so it can be fully funded.
Oh, okay.
If you want to go to the next slide. Sorry, it's better. It
Alex?
really doesn't like my voice, it seems like. Yeah.
Councillor Cannon has a.
Mhm.
The marina divestiture.
Sure. If you want to
Have
scroll
on
down.
one of the things, the 100% federal funded from small craft harbors for 500,000.
Mhm.
But then you have another one in your budget for $100,000 for the same thing. Can you tell me why it's down twice? One's 23, 26.
I see. Yeah, so I can answer that. So we get the funding all at once for $500,000, but then we're not spending it all in the same year. So there's several components of that project that come out as expenses over, I want to say it's 3 years. 4 years. Okay, 4 years. So we receive the funding as one lump sum, and then we've got several pieces of that project that happen in multiple different years. So that's probably the best way to explain it. It seems a little odd on the sheet because it comes in and then it's several other things. We're not spending more than $500,000. It's just spent over time.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go down the subject to funding list. These microphones really don't like me. Okay, so the first in subject to funding is community center improvements. So councillors who have been on for a couple years would recognize that this is an item that we put. Community center improvement section is a section that's there on a recurring basis. It's really frustrating. And that is for a lot of the smaller items at the community center that we're not going for like a larger project with. So for example, the community center HVAC project, very large component, about $1 million there in just HVAC units. So that's something that we componentize separately. These things are typically smaller things. So for example, the one that we have on the docket for this year is replacing the slow glycol pump, which is one of the 3 glycol pumps at the community center, which is slated for replacement, as well as the scrubber, which if you've ever seen the folks at the community center ride along on, it looks like a Zamboni for the floor. That's our scrubber. It's on its last legs. So right now I'm looking for funding for those 2 items as some of the smaller components at the community center.
Alex, didn't you talk about the glycol pump at the start? Is this the same pump or is it another pump or?
So we have 3. So I replaced one 2 years ago.
Okay.
One was supposed to be replaced this year. It was ordered in February. It showed up last week.
Oh, it did. That's
Yes.
the curling rink.
That's the curling link glycol pump, exactly.
Okay.
So it won't be installed until next year because it's just a bad plan to try and install it in the middle of the season. And then this year I'm looking for funding for the 3rd glycol pump in the manifold, which is the slow glycol pump. Typically, it only serviced the actual arena, not the curling rink. There's a way of adjusting how the piping is done. So it could be the backup pump for both the arena as well as the curling rink.
Is that what you're going to do?
I'd like to, if I can find funding for it. So it's in the subject to funding portion right now.
Okay, thanks.
Other things that are subject to funding, there's 2 NOHFC funding applications that we're currently doing. The first one is for the interior of the arena. It's under the rural enhancement stream of the NOHFC. That's something that takes care of some of the flooring issues that we've been having at the community center, as well as seeks to improve our lobby for tourist information in the off-season when the tourist information center is not in use. The second arena upgrade is the HVAC system. That is just HVAC. There's nothing else in that system. And those are both in stage 2, and you'll see a resolution coming up under new business to support those applications. The next one is the marina divestiture. It's from Smallcraft Harbors. We're currently negotiating between Smallcraft Harbors and Mishpachatan First Nation as part of the consultation process for the divestiture. If that goes forwards, there's several items that are slated for that divestiture that we would bring to council as a separate report when it comes time to actually accept the terms of the divestiture. The next one is Tourist Information Center accessibility. So it's something that I'm currently in the stage of getting quotes for to source out Trillium funding, which there's 2 applications that are coming up in 2023. We're looking to do automatic doors at the Tourist Information Center, as well as improve the thresholds of the Tourist Information Center to make it easier for people to access the facility.
There's a group called Destination Ontario. You guys know about it. Like they give out money for, would you apply there for your? At Tourist Information Center?
Typically with Destination Northern Ontario, they have certain pilot projects or certain programs where they approach us. So for example, the new sign in front of the Tourist Information Center, we didn't apply for that funding. They approached us and said, hey, we've got a project to redo signs at 10 tourist information centers. Would you like to be one of them? Which of course we said yes. So when Destination Northern Ontario, typically they get their funding from a similar source as us. So I believe the signage project was a FedNor funded thing where they went to Destination Northern Ontario and then they spread out the funding throughout the communities. So if there's opportunities for something like that, absolutely we would jump on it. But it's not something I can apply to them directly for, like I would a Trillium or an NOHFC.
Okay, maybe I know something I shouldn't know.
Hey, that'd be great.
Okay.
If any counselors have any sources of funding that they would like us to apply to, or even just contact somebody, if you know something that I don't know, then I'm certainly all ears and happy to take that feedback.
I do, yeah, okay.
Okay. Next up on the next slide, the Marina Park. It's something I brought to council, let's say 4 or 5 months ago. There was a private donation for a playground at the marina. So obviously that's in the subject to funding. However, that's going to be part of a request for proposals to purchase and install the playground, which will then be funded by that private individual. The next one on there, and so this is now going into the future, 25-26. We've got on there playgrounds, but that also includes equipment at the sports fields. So that would be things like redoing the fencing, redoing the nets, doing some work to the actual field itself to make sure that it is level and safe for people to play on. And so, of course, that's in the subject to funding as well, contingent that we can secure some type of funding to redo the sports field in general, which would also include some type of equipment, typically fitness equipment that would be more geared towards seniors to go along the running track, as well as a small playground at the sports field.
Sports field. Like, do we use it all?
Not all at the same time, typically. So the soccer fields are used mostly by the schools, sometimes for gym class, but also for regional soccer meets, which happen 2 to 3 times a year, depending on the year. And then baseball, we're starting to get requests to get a league start up again, but we haven't really used it since COVID. When the league was running, one or both fields would be in use.
Okay.
So I can't make any guarantees about this coming summer. It really depends on what leagues are running. But yes, one way or another, the field is used.
Okay. Because some young ladies are going to try to get a dog park open, and they're very enthusiastic about that. So they asked me about I said, you'd have to talk to Maury or Alex. They didn't come to you yet?
No, but you can absolutely send them my way. Okay, the next one, Wawa Goose Nest and downtown upgrades. So this is taking a look at the actual Goose Nest site and applying for funding to make it more conducive to the events that we're actually hosting there. Things like the Wawa Music Festival, and a lot of the larger community events, which we're currently doing road closures for. What we're trying to do with that particular project is to redesign the actual terrain to make it more conducive to those types of events. And the last one, because I'm getting the eyeballs a little bit here, Waterfront Phase 2, which is if you take a look at the LaPointe plan that we used for Phase 1 of the waterfront, it would be looking at the shoulders of that plan. So everything from Roses Beach down to the creek on one side, and from Wyans Beach up to the Old Mine Road on the other side.
Turning it off, sorry. What about the races? Are they coming back this year? Do you know?
I don't have a volunteer committee for the races anymore. So without a volunteer committee, I'm not able to operate the races just myself. So as of right now, no.
That's too bad. Did you advertise for a new committee?
3 times. It mostly collapsed during COVID, so I haven't advertised post-COVID, if you want to call what we're in right now
Because
post-COVID.
people really liked them, didn't they? Yeah. Maybe you should advertise again, if that's okay with everybody.
I think that would have to be a direction of council. I'm looking at Maury.
I'll just take the opportunity to, maybe we can have this conversation at another time, and I'll redirect council's efforts back to the budget presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I only have 3 projects this year that I wish I could get funded. One is the community risk assessment, and what it is a legislated regulation that we have to complete for the community. It looks at analyzing and evaluating and prioritizing the risks of public safety in the community. The cost is $25,000. This money was raised last year in taxation. The project goal is to complete and assess identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and prioritizing risks to public safety. This is the first project that then develops into the fire service review. This project is for the municipality of Wawa to make informed decisions on fire protection services. The cost is $25,000. I'm hoping to get it done by the end of this year, but I'm looking more at next year to get it completed. It's to prioritize local risks from community risk assessment. It looks at investment of resources for emergency response and prevention. It will provide for council to reassess services provided by the Wawa Fire Department.
We're able to do all that, right? You don't have to hire somebody to come in?
I have to get some assistance doing it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
So I could collect the data that they require, and then they can do up the report.
Okay, thank
The last project I have is going to work with the municipal building and getting it assessed on what's required. The cost for this is $25,000. Oh, sorry. So I need a condition needs an architect of the fire hall. It was originally built in '62. It's had 4 additions. Yes.
Kevin, was this not the project that Manuela just said we received funding from Federation of Municipalities?
I'll do that again. The 50,000 that we received is for the condition assessment of the building. This is more a needs and architecture. So the funding that we received will tell us, is there asbestos in the building, those types of things. The needs that are specific to the fire department will come from this 35,000, as well as the architectural design and drawing.
And the 2 reports combined will likely help us form a funding application?
Yes.
Yes.
That's correct.
Understood.
So this condition and needs is to determine whether to do a addition, a renovation to the fire hall, or replace it. And that's it, I think.
Good evening.
Sorry,
So-
Dan, before you get started, Councillor Cannon has a question.
And there's funding for all of this, even the renovations, right? Or a new fire hall? As at that funding forum that they had?
Yes, but you have to have these assessments or these
Done first,
reports
okay.
before you can apply.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Bear with me as I have quite a few slides and I'm not as long-winded as Alex and Maury. I'm usually short and sweet. My first project is the cemetery expansion. It's going to be a multi-year project with 3 phases. Phase 1 will be the addition of columbariums and a walkway. A new gate will be put in, and this is because right now, we currently have 49 plots left in our cemetery. It's harder for us to dig and cremate and everything else. We're trying to please people right now, and everybody seems to be going with cremations. So this is what we're looking at, and this is something that we can bring up to council to share and sell the plots to raise money for the new expansion. Next one is our,
Were you planning, or did you mention, and I was busy writing, you know, the columns they have for cremation? Did you say we might put some of those in?
yes,
Okay,
those are columbariums.
column, oh, that's what they're called?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next project is our water intake valve. It is funded with grants, reserves, and water revenue. It is to replace the water valve at the lakefront, and is to replace the main line that comes into the pump house. So this is what this is, and it's going to help reassure the fresh water coming into the pump house and into our water filtration plant, which helps with our filters. Hydrant rehabilitation. This is going to be a multi-year project. A few years ago, we had all our hydrants checked out to see how they are, how they work, and everything else. We have a big, long list. A lot of our hydrants are very old, and we're having a hard time getting parts for them. So what we've decided to do is we're going to do 8 hydrants a year. We instead of replacing them, digging down to the infrastructure and replacing the whole hydrant itself, we found a company that rehabilitates them. We only have to go halfway down. They cut them in half. They make it into what's called a breakaway hydrant that has a collar. So if something happens to it, it breaks away halfway down instead of going all the way to the bottom. We replace all the guts in them, and then it's literally becomes a new hydrant. So we're hoping to do 8 a year. Currently, we're having a hard time getting the hydrants. So what we did this year was we finally got to purchase 16. We got the company to hold his price and give us our quote for following next year for 2023, and he's going to do all 16 next year for the same price.
That was my question. How many did we have? Like 8 a year? Or is this a 25-year plan?
There are currently 70,
Okay, perfect.
but not all of them have to be. Maybe a 10-year plan.
Perfect.
The sewer jet, as Manuel has said, it's been in the midst for a long time. This is something that will help out infrastructure, our water and sewer department. We can do our own work instead of hiring contractors all the time. It's something we can do for our smaller jobs where the big truck really isn't needed. It comes from the water and sewer user fees. And it helps to reduce, like I said, our operating budget by about $20,000 to $30,000 a year. Water treatment plant filters. This one was, we've been looking at them for quite a while. They are past their due. They're only about 7 years to 10 years maximum. We're over our time limit. So last year we really looked into them. We got prices on them. Come springtime, we tried to order them. We still can't get them. Our price went up 15% right off the bat. Now they're coming in with $200,000 instead of $150,000. We were going to try and do them every year. We're still hoping that this is going to happen as the supply is. It's supply and demand, right? It's something that we have to do. This is something that we need to get done, or we can run on one skid, which is 30 filters, but we have 3. If one fails, we only have 2 left. It's something we have to do. Landfill expansion. This expansion has been in the midst since 2012. They say it takes 10 years. It's taking 11. We've been at this finally we got to the end of our funding. Our funding is done this year, but the expansion is still going. We're looking at to get another $400,000 for next year. The work itself was done, like the expansion part, the new cell, all the new infrastructure was put in. We're not currently using it right now. We're going to wait until spring. We're going to have a little get together, grand opening kind of thing. We still need to purchase some more equipment, some bins. Once all this is in place, we'll have a grand opening. We'll open it up. It's going to help with keeping people coming in and just dumping in the right spots and stuff, not picking, stuff like that. And it's a safety thing too, right? So it is a high priority, and I hope this gets done.
Is it what we've done this year, is it done for the year because of the weather? Like,
Yes, actually the that part is complete.
okay,
Next year it'll be digging the cell and like getting the equipment to move the bins and the garbage from the original site now to the back to the new site.
and everything's going well, like?
Yes, it is.
everything? Okay.
Yep. Sidewalk rehabilitation, this is a multi-year project. We are using the street scan that we had done in 2021 to go through and pick out the sidewalks and roads that are in rough shape, and they prioritized which ones we should do. And this is what we're doing. We're using this list to move forward, and each year we're going to do a certain amount of sidewalk, and we're just prioritizing which ones we have from the list. That's how we're coming up with them.
Sorry, I'll just add for council's benefit to this. We have a grant that we've been using to do this, and that grant will expire in 2024. So the funds that we've allocated for 23 and 24 are coming directly from that grant, and then the remaining funds will come, I believe, from taxation after that.
Dan, in front of my house, there was an engineer that was doing something, and they put up flags. Is that what you're doing for sidewalks or something? I just wondered what it was. An engineering company.
Did that have to do with the school zone project?
Oh, maybe, yeah, because at the end of it. Okay, I was just wondering. I thought couldn't figure out what they were doing.
Okay. Our next one is the pavement preservation. So this is exactly the same thing. We went with street scan, looking at all the roads in Wawa, picking out which are the worst ones, which spots can be rehabilitated without doing the whole street itself. So we're picking and choosing spots that need to be resurfaced. This is what we're going to do. It's something smaller than, you know, going into the millions of dollars. We did the one on Regina this year. It was
Yeah.
about $100,000, and it did a real good job. So
And you also did the corner at Churchill, which I was really happy at because the contract ended just before. The contract ended at the top of the street, but you went that extra because of all the trouble with, it was just a mess there. So it was really appreciated.
yes, so that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to pick smaller spots to do with this 150,000 each year. Airport terminal building. So we're looking at 150,000 over the 3 years to be funded by taxation revenues and donations. We're looking to modernize the airport. We're looking to, change the furnace in the terminal and the garage. This changing from oil to gas cut our prices in half. We're trying to come up with money to replace our aging equipment. Our equipment is 25 years old, starting to break down. We tried getting funding, but because Wawa, most of the aircraft that comes in are private or chartered, we can't get funding from Transport Canada. So this is something that we're trying to do ourselves. Smaller projects, we have the IS building on the Magpie, the Public Works building. We're trying to replace the heating system. It's as old as the building. It's a boiler system. It's the same thing, right? Price of oil, it's costing us a fortune. We're trying to change that over to propane. Our mower, same thing. It's getting old. It gets abused by students every year. It's just something that we have to replace, right? Compressor at the water treatment plant, same thing, right? Over time, everything gets used up and we have to replace them. Same thing as a low lift station IT upgrade. We had a little bit of a hiccup this year where power went down. We couldn't get the pumps back up. It's a communication between the low lift and the plant itself. It's something that has to be done. It's just over time and age, right? Everything happens. Chlorination pump, same thing at the water tower, needs to be replaced.
That's the mission, eh? The water tower you're talking about?
Yes.
You're talking about the mission? Yeah.
Yep. I think I went through that one already. Mini excavator and trailer. This is something that will help out not just myself, water department. It'll also help out Alex in a lot of our projects. We can use it everywhere. We can use it at the cemetery. We can use it, for helping dredge the marina if we have to. It's something that will help us out in all our endeavors. It helps out with the landfill expansion. We can do all the work ourselves. And this is what we're trying to do. And it also helps out with our backhoe using the brusher. The brusher killed our backhoe because of the weight of it. And it's something that we're trying to save money on. And instead of expending all our time and effort on one piece of equipment, we're trying to spread it around a little bit. Water truck for the water department. We're replacing a 2008 truck that just ran its course, right?
Alex, I'm sorry. Dan, you know those huge, we got some equipment from there, like they're big, like sails, and it's secondhand equipment, most of it, but it's in really good shape, a lot of them. Have you ever been able to go to one of those?
You're talking about a government auction?
I don't know if it's government or, like, I just remember Freddie going to them. I never went, but the equipment was always in really good shape.
We have purchased some used equipment in the past. Our packer at the landfill is a used piece of equipment.
Yeah, okay. So you do get to them once in a while?
Yes, we do. Actually, my next one for the, after the water distribution upgrade. Sorry, so the water distribution upgrade, it's a high priority. It was identified by SBA Master Water Master Plan as an immediate concern for the project. Business owners, municipality, industrial park, and so this is something that Rebecca has been working on. I'm not too familiar with it, but she could talk more about it. I know she has in the past.
Is it a piece of equipment?
Pardon?
Is it a piece of equipment or?
Oh, okay. I'll let Manuela.
Sorry, SBA, Steve Burnett and Associates did our water and wastewater master plan.
Yeah.
And as part of that plan, they went through all our water facilities and they identified components that were in need of rehabilitation. And some were marked as immediate and critical. Others were something that could wait a year or two. So these items that are here were the items that were marked as critical and immediate concerns that needed to be addressed.
Councillor Hatfield, this is to ensure that there is a booster pump put on Pinewood Drive. And that is to ensure that the pressure, the rate of flow is increased. And that's a health and safety requirement for proper fire flow, should there ever be a fire in the area, and also helps should there be any planned expansion in the area, whether it be industrial or new building being built. And it is a pump, so it is a piece of equipment. Thank you.
So my last project is the roll-off truck for the landfill, which will move the bins from the new site back to the dump zone. And this will be something that we're looking to purchase as used, not new. Yes, Mel?
Dan, thank you very much for your presentation. I recognize that infrastructure always has a lot of capital needs. One thing I noticed when I was looking at each of the slides is there is a priority ranking on each of the slides, and every single one of them says high priority. So recognizing that they're all important, all of them cannot be high priority. So I'm wondering if and when this does come back to us, if maybe we could kind of revisit that priority system and maybe kind of adopt like a stoplight approach, like a red, yellow, and green kind of, like maybe we can continue to let the students abuse our mowers, but we definitely need red light for the roll-off truck.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yep.
But something for you to take into consideration for sure.
Okay.
Councillor Hatfield?
Dan, the grader's working good. That big swiper thing,
Yes.
that's working great. We had trouble with them last winter. Your new piece of equipment you got, is it satisfactory? You're happy with it?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good, thanks.
Is there any other questions from any councillors? Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue on. The next slide just is a brief summary of some of the projects for 24, 25, and 26. So the town hall renovation and fire hall, hopefully starting in 24, 25. Official plan and zoning bylaw is something we need to be looking at in the near future. Pavement preservation will be ongoing, water tower upgrades, computer upgrades. The loader is starting to, we have to look at replacing that in 2026. So just a few more items there. The bulk of it in 2024 is because of construction, 4 million, 1.1 million in 25, and then 26 is that we're still working towards that end. So the next slide is just a summary of how we would pay for those projects. So the 4.2 million is a combination of 292,000 in taxation, 300,000 from reserves, grants, and other. So the other is the one I really wanted to touch on. The 3.5 million is a loan. And depending on where our reserves are at the time, it would probably be at least partially, if not fully funded from our reserves, or lent from our reserves to ourselves and paid back to our own reserves. So that'll bring us to the reserve and reserves fund slide. So this is just a recap of where our reserves are today. So at the end of 2022, we have approximately almost $11 million in reserves. Yeah, reserves can be discretionary or obligatory. It's money that's been set aside over the years. Sometime it came from surplus funds, like I talked about earlier. Some of it is from grants that we've received and we don't have to use right away. So that would be a good example of a discretion or of an obligatory reserve. The federal gas tax is a good one. It's money that can be used for core infrastructure such as roads, but it can't be used for items other than the core infrastructure, and it has to be used within a certain time frame. So we want to make sure that we maximize those so that we don't have to pay them back to the funders. I'm gonna start coughing. Pardon me. So the next slide just breaks down our reserves in the next few years based on our needs. So it just really to give council some reassurance that even though we're spending reserves, we're still building them up. I'm going to let you.
Manuela, just using Dan's water filter example, where there definitely was an increased cost in the supplies and services that we had to purchase, or moving forward, do we have any kind of contingency built into our budget to allow for that kind of inflation?
Budget is an estimate, so I mean we can't project. We have obviously this year accounted for the increase, but and because we're looking at 23, 4, 5, 6, we are also considering that inflation is going to impact those years. But it is an estimate. It's a budget. It's not an exact science. We could never give you an exact number on what it would be.
So Mayor, if I may add on to Manuela's response to your question, the answer is yes. We have a set of reserves, and one of those reserves, as one example, is just called general capital. So there's one reserve, not obligatory or specified for any purpose other than general capital needs. So in the event we had budgeted 150,000 as an example through this process, but the cost comes back to us as 200, we would approach council for the support and resolution supporting the additional capital required, with likely a scenario where we would say, and the additional 50,000 would come from the general capital. So the answer is yes, because they are estimates. So we always have in our reserves some way of funding these unexpected cost increases.
I have a question. I didn't hear anybody say they wanted a big piece of equipment. Is that at this budget or is it at another one?
Sorry, I'm pretty sure Dan spoke about
That's a
the
big-
mini excavator.
The roll-off truck?
Little thing.
It's not that little.
No, but I mean, what are you looking at for something like that?
It didn't have the price on this.
Okay, I just wondered. I'm sorry, Dan, I was listening, but I,
Remember it off the top of 225,000? Yeah.
oh, 225, okay. Like, is that the only big piece of equipment I heard from anybody except
There was
Kevin?
also the water truck. 75.
75, okay. And of course, Kevin would like a new fire truck. That's always ongoing. Yeah. Okay, so as far as big pieces of equipment, those are the only two, really?
There was the roll-off truck,
Roll-off truck.
Okay, just
the loader.
roll-off truck.
226.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the mini excavator. Say that again, Dad?
So if it assists council, we will provide a list, one sheet that lists all the equipment with the prices, if that would help you
Oh, it's
quantify.
I just like putting in my own notes, and then
Okay.
through the year I go back and see if we purchased anything or we were able to get it, just so I could.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the budget process, it's, I think, important to note for our new counselors, again, this is our estimate, and we've gone through, this is not every piece of equipment we need to potentially replace,
Mhm.
but this is what we present to council as we see the most important and the most affordable given certain circumstances. So there are other pieces of large equipment to come, particularly I think about the airport. But we bought large pieces of equipment over the last couple of years, so maybe we're having a little bit of a break. But these are estimates. So at any time, we can come to council through the proper process. If something breaks down or we identify some excuse me, health and safety risks with the piece of equipment, or a grant comes up, we will always come to council through the year.
Yeah.
If adjustments need to be made. Thank you.
Okay, it's just so I could go back in my notes and say, oh, we did purchase that, or no, we didn't. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Cannon?
understand, like with the capital projects and that, with all the grants, but with everything increasing, those grants aren't going to cover all of the projects. So then we're going to have to cover the rest for anything that the grants don't.
That's correct. It's rare that a grant covers 100%. We try to maximize any grants we can get. We also try to group federal and provincial grants in order to achieve a better balance. So we do use our reserves. We use taxation. Sometimes we just use our reserves and don't replace them right away. Sometimes we borrow from the reserves. And borrowing from outside of ourselves is also an option. So debt as a revenue is also an option that council can look at. I would caution this year with high interest rates that's probably not the first place we would want to look, but it's definitely there if it was absolutely needed.
And if I may add on, we do, whenever we're able to, always have a contingency. So we prepare for what our best guess is on impacts of inflation or material issues. So we always, when we apply for a grant, try to make sure that we have a contingency in that budget, which tonight you're being asked to support staff's application to NOHFC. Within those applications, we have cost estimates that have included understanding the cost of inflation in the upcoming year, and then have contingencies. So to supplement Manuela's response to your question, we prepare as best we can and often keep that in consideration when we prepare for the long term. It already has on an added, normally we're budgeting 2-3% per year as an added cost. So we might be a little short, but there are other ways, as Manuel is saying, to try to make up those deficits.
Okay, thanks. So then the last thing we have are just our timelines. So tonight was the capital budget presentation. There's a public input and comment period from tomorrow until the 6th of January. And then we're hoping to bring it back on January 10th for council approval. And then in February, we'll bring forward the draft operating budget. There'll be a public input period then as well, with the final operating budget in March.
Thank you very much for everybody's input in the presentation. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I think we're good. Is there any official direction that you need from us, Maury?
Thank you. I'm just delay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. No, tonight's presentation is just to introduce these items that we're recommending as part of the 23 budget. No direction tonight. Just if you have any questions, please reach out to the director responsible for the project if it's a detailed question, and we will bring forward, because this capital budget is not in isolation of the approval of the operating budget, because as you heard tonight, I think the estimate was about 296,000 of what we're putting forward tonight has to come in what we're presenting to you from the operating budget, which ultimately impacts potential tax rate increases or requirement to reduce costs. So tonight is just information, but we will bring this back to you with more details about the impacts on reserves and give you a sheet that will detail each reserve, and we'll bring back more information in the future. And why we bring it first is just so you have opportunity to ask questions, and with your general direction to answer your question, it's to go ahead, Mayor and Council, to start a public consultation process so we can determine if anyone in the public would like to add anything on to the capital budget, and we'll bring it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing the public's input and comments. Perfect. So if there's nothing more, we'll move on to item number 5, announcements and giving notice. Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Item 6.1, to authorize a submission for a funding application for the Wawa Community Center.
Moved by Councillor Opato, second by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality Wawa authorize, support, and fund the municipal share and submit 2 applications to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation as follows. Number 1, to the Rural Enhancement Stream for the Wawa Community Center Modernization Project, Phase 1, for a project total of $500,000 and a municipal share of $175,000. Number 2, to enhance your community stream for the Wawa Community Center Modernization Project, Phase 2, for a project total of $1.133 million and a municipal share of $566,500. And further, that the municipality Wawa will cover all cost overruns to the aforementioned projects.
Are there any questions? All in favor? Carried. There's no item number 7, number 8, and number 9 are, there's nothing. So we'll move right on to item number 10, adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Opato, resolved that the meeting close at 7:42 p.m.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.